I believe in '08 during the crash, some of the best companies were created. And the reason why is you have talented people that got laid off.
Welcome to the Startup Huddle. I'm your host, Josef Maruščák, and I'm excited to introduce you to the current and upcoming leaders of the startup tech world. We'll discuss digital products and key takeaways for life and professional growth. So grab a coffee and let's huddle up. Hello, welcome everyone. So today we have here on the next episode Casey Wu, a friend of mine, hopefully a business partner as well. Casey, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Joseph.
Yeah, so I'm very happy that you're here because you have a super interesting background. You studied at Harvard economics, then you went through Wall Street, working in Morgan Stanley. Then you end up in Silicon Valley, working as the COO and CFO in companies like WeWork, and you are also an investor and a startup founder yourself. So I'm very pretty much looking forward to that. That's not a very typical profile for a startup founder in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I get bored easily.
Yeah, I can see that. Perfect. So, Casey, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey and essentially how did you get here? Your background, your story in your words.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Southern California, and the first 10 years of my career, I started in the military at West Point. Then from there, I went to study economics at Harvard. And I can go into West Point in detail, but to keep the story a little bit shorter, as an economics major, you're told there's 2 steps to nirvana. Step 1, go to an island called Manhattan and get a banking job at Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley. So I said, okay. I went there. I met half my groomsmen and my wife, and I'm very good at Microsoft Excel. The second and last step to nirvana is get a hedge fund or private equity job and then retire. That's it. That's the entire journey. At the age of 24, I got a prestigious hedge fund job. I covered consumer retail, Under Armour IPO, Victoria's Secret fashion show, super fun. I was overpaid. I had a beautiful office overlooking Central Park. It was New York, nothing to complain about.
But I guess it was a very, very short journey to Nirvana for you, right?
Well, it wasn't Nirvana. If I reached Nirvana, that would be great. It wasn't my Nirvana. So while I was top of the totem pole Wall Street, right, I had friends calling, how do I get into Wall Street? How do I become a hedge fund investor? I started to get bored. And not because investing is boring. It's a very challenging, interesting job. I realized that I got bored because I missed my team. Being by myself in an office is lonely. And the second thing is I wasn't building anything. As an investor, you buy, sell, buy, sell. So after total 10 years, I took a big pay cut and I joined a 10-person startup in Silicon Alley in New York. And I loved it. I loved it so much that I told my wife, hey, I want to go where the best in the world are when it comes to tech. It's not New York, it's San Francisco. So that's how I came over. I can tell you more, but now I'm 10 years battle-torn, 5 or 6 tours of duty, seed A, B, C, D, pre-IPO, the WeWork crazy, turnarounds, high growth, SaaS, e-commerce, marketplace, B2B, B2C, raised over probably $600 million of debt and equity, have all the stories, and I'm here today.
That's indeed very interesting. So what was the key motivation for you getting from Wall Street to the Silicon Valley? Was it the as you said, it was the loneliness and lacking of the team? When you came to the Valley, were your expectations met, or did you struggle with anything? How did they welcome you here?
That's a great question, because that's where the real interesting stuff happened. I was not welcome. Not in the sense of like, people are really nice. It's when you're finance New York, you're the top of the mountain. You're the king and queens. When you're finance 10 years ago, Silicon Valley, you're a bookkeeper. Nothing against bookkeepers, but people that I spoke to didn't value finance. They saw it as budgeting or my expense report. There's only 3 first-class citizens. The first one is the people who fund it, VCs. The second are the people who build it, product engineering. And the third are the people who sell it, sales and marketing. Notice I didn't say finance, HR, talent, legal, IT, ops. Those are considered back office. So it was really hard to come in and try to add value or even explain to someone what I do. And our titles didn't even match what we did. I was called VP Finance and Biz Ops. Not even sure exactly what that means. But yeah, my expectations were surprisingly underwhelmed, and it was a very difficult transition.
And so how did you break it? What was happening? You came here, you sort of had in the eyes of the Silicon Valley people and the startupists, your expertise was not necessarily what they thought they needed. Uh, how did you get into the startups? You switched from essentially investment banking to your first roles were the roles of the CFO and COO, right?
Yeah, I went from
So, Mhm.
investing into companies into becoming the CFO of companies. Breaking in is, you just get the job, right? So it's through VCs. They think they know why you're there. I remember one of my first bosses, it was an almost all engineers and me, which is what I wanted because a lot of people said, you don't know what a real tech company is like, right? It's like very pretentious. It's like, oh, welcome to Silicon Valley. Do you know what tech is like? And I thought I did. I was at a startup in New York, and they said, no. That's called business people hiring engineers. That's not a tech company. And they were right, by the way. So I went to a company with 15 years of me, and I remember the CEO saying, I raised a bunch of Series B money, and they said I needed a finance person. So here we are. So they didn't really understand what finance could do, but they understood that you needed one. And then from there, you prove it and you change people's perception. Wow, they're strategic. Wow, they helped us garner insight that changed our decisions. They help us grow faster. They help us save money. And then with myself and 700 of my friends who do this now that I know of, at every one of our companies, every day, we prove that we're more than back office. And eventually what happens is people start to say, wait, this whole finance thing, this whole HR thing is strategic. And I want a strategic finance person. I want a chief people officer, not just, someone who does my expenses.
Got it. And how did the change happen, or why we are talking about how much time ago when you firstly arrived here in the Valley? When was it?
Almost 10 years ago.
10 years ago. So what happened between those, in the last, let's say, 10 years or 5 years, whenever the change happened, that the Silicon Valley people and the startup founders realized they needed, good operators to support them? What was it? Was it because there was too much money on the market, or because the industry was not, evolved yet, or there was not that much competition? So, those things didn't matter. What was the key
Yeah,
difference?
very good question. It's a combination of things. One of them was the speed at which companies get built. It gets faster and more complicated. Before it's, develop software, sell it. Now you see, unicorn in 2 years, right? Faster, 10x growth. Whenever you have speed, you have scaling issues. So finance matters a lot more. People matter a lot more. So that was one of the things, is that startups got more complicated real fast. And you needed this operator to help keep it together. The second is the DNA changed. More and more bankers, more and more consultants from what I would call the business side flowed in to finance and operations. So when you have me versus more of a standard of someone from accounting or controller, it's a very different approach, generally speaking. We're generally more into the business. We ask a lot of business questions. We forecast. We partner a lot with sales and marketing, which is not normally what a traditional CFO does. They're more on the compliance and forecasting of budget. So you have speed of businesses increasing, the need for scalers to be there, and then you have this new breed where people see it. Oh, I see now what finance can do. And then the third is data. When you have data, you have insights. When you have insights, you have intelligence. When you have intelligence, you can add value. Systems and tools around the CFO have gotten so good now. We can provide that value that people value. So before, grow. Now it's like unit economics, payback. So the world of startups has gotten more sophisticated in terms of financial metrics and measurement and ROI, not just accounting. So all that combined has grown over 10 years. The what I call the rise of the operator. And there's still more to go.
And that brings me to my next question, and that's about the role of the CFO. So, what exactly? So, if you could tell us maybe a little bit more about the most interesting CFO jobs you got before, or the most interesting experience, and what exactly was your role, and maybe how that role of the CFO changes over time as you see it. Because as you said, there's so much new technology coming in. We get a lot more access to data. Very, I would say, more elaborate analytical tools. And the whole the same way as the startups world is growing very quickly, the same applies to the CFO tools, and therefore I would just suspect that the role is essentially different every 2 years. So if you could tell us a little bit more about your best experience or most interesting ones, and then how the role is changing.
So the most interesting one is WeWork, for sure. The speed at which we were building a physical business, not software. They call it atoms versus bits. Atoms are a lot harder. I loved WeWork because it's a people business. I love WeWork because we would bring beautiful office space, but it also taught me everything that we've all learned. Right now, I wasn't the CFO, so to be clear, but I was pretty senior, and so I got a lot of the joy of the building. I didn't have to fundraise, the learnings of what happens at scale, what works, what doesn't, without having to deal with the politics and the crazy that everyone knows about. We built at scale. We were global. So I had Chinese partners, Brazilian partners, European partners. So I love that community. And the other one is talent. When you're a name brand company, you bring in some of the best talent. So all my friends and colleagues. So that's my best tour of duty. How it's changed is that the office of the CFO is becoming the office of business intelligence, or someone coined it chief performance officer. We have more and more data all integrated. We can finally access insights so quickly. Whereas before it took forever. They're buried in accounting. You have to mangle it on Excel. That by the time you got it, it was too late. I think the office of the CFO is no longer going to be about budgets. It's going to be about incredible business intelligence for everyone. Finance is one of the only functions that sees everything. I'll say it again. Finance is one of the only databases and functions that sees everything. Money flows through everything. What does that mean? That means before, or 10 years ago, most of the data and intelligence sat under product engineering. They're the special people. It's all product engineering, databases, SQL, right? Things that you're like, non-technical people like me, like, I don't know how to access Python. I don't want to do that. Now it's all Stripe, Rippling. It's all there for me. And we've gotten so advanced that non-technical people have access to the data, but more importantly, financial acumen. Product engineering people are not going to tell you about unit economics. That's just kind of not their thing. They tell you about customers, usage, great. What about the return on the customer? That's even more important. Or sorry, as important. Yeah, so the CFO office is going to become very strategic.
Got it. How does it maybe differ from the role of the traditional COO? Because you also got like the both two roles in certain companies, or you went through those two roles in your different job positions. From my perspective, like what you're describing is also very common for the COOs. Their key responsibility would be to gather all the data and set up the processes so that the data is flowing in the right way. So is this just a question of terminology, or actually those two roles are different and are going in the different directions?
Oh man, you hit a really juicy topic, so I'm going to try to be succinct. I'll disclaim for anyone listening, what I'm going to say is I'm trying to simplify for the sake of messaging. None of it is simple. On one angle, you can say that COO is a made-up title. It's called, it's called I need a bunch of stuff done that doesn't fit under a title, and it requires someone senior. CLO. We also call it gap filler. So at early stage, a CLO to me is a gap filler. That sounds bad, but you know what I'm saying. We don't have So very often for COOs, they're very talented. They're generalists. They're, there's like kind of a few types. There's the CRO, COO. There's the CFO, COO, and then there's the president COO, who acts pretty much like an in-house day-to-day CEO, and the CEO does external. And there's many other types, right? When it relates to CRO versus CFO, it's external versus internal. So some CEOs, they do sales and product and marketing, right? They're just a generalist there. Or you're the CFO, COO, which is your HR, people, legal, finance, all that. But notice, if you're a CEO in an early stage company, I've known them. I am one. Hey, Joseph, how's your COO job going? Whoa, it's really busy. I do product, I do sales. Okay, cool. 1 year later, Joseph, how's it going? We've grown so much. It's so successful. And we just hired a head of sales. We just hired a head of product. Joseph, what do you do? You just said you have a head of sales and product. I don't think COOs, unless it's like operational, like supply chain, are a permanent role. I think they're a temporary role. CFO is a permanent role. So I know I didn't really answer your question, but I think they're very different. I think what's going to happen is we call it CFO plus. They are and can act like a COO.
But I think I got the gist of what you're describing. Now a lot of what you described in terms of the CFO role seems like it's incredibly powerful and useful in larger organizations, I would say, or later stage startups. Now, when do you think a startup needs a CFO? In the traditional sort of gathering business intelligence and trying to find out
Yeah, I think the title is misleading because let's call it head of finance. If you're like talking air quotes CFO, I think it's generally when you're getting closer to being public, or you have significant fundraising, investor relations, because it's very strategic and a lot of it has to do with investors. It's more of you can argue it's more of a political job than a operating doer job. At early stage, you call it VP finance, you can call it CFO, but what they do is very different depending on stage. Early stage, it is about building and fundraising. It's about building the metrics. What metrics do we measure? And then saying, okay, we learned this about the business. What do you think? So at a very early stage, you should be able to be insightful and business intelligence. And that should start early. That shouldn't be something that's when you're late. Late is because you have a lot of money and a size and a big operation, and you need to split the duties of like dealing with investors or the board, right? Then you need someone more senior, and then you call them CFO. They can do all the stuff, but that's not the best use of their time. So the answer is any head of finance should be doing strategic intelligence work at every stage.
Perfect.
Besides you have no product.
Yeah.
Post product, yeah.
Yeah, but what's interesting maybe about what you said is that the roles of the CFO should be covered from the very very early stage. Although maybe it's not the biggest priority at that point, or it's not the only role of that person, but like you should definitely take care of it.
Let me replace CFO with strategic finance. The role of strategic finance should start early. Because CFO of Google versus CFO of Series B is totally different. But it's really what you do. Finance should be strategic early, not bookkeeping early. Yes, that too. But a lot of people are just do the accounting and bookkeeping for too long. Only that. And they don't turn it into intelligence until much later. Too late, in my opinion.
Got it. Perfect. Thanks very much for this, Casey. Now let's maybe switch to your more let's say startup adventures, more startup adventures on your own. So you also somehow started, and I would like to hear from you the journey. one operators guild, OG, and then FOG as an sort of investment fund. So can you tell us a little bit more about how it came about and where is it right now?
Yeah, OG, which stands for Operators Guild, was, as my mentor said, it's an organization I create. It's the organization I created that I wanted for myself. So there's 10 people in a lunch group that I met 8 years ago who were operators like me, lost. That whole story about no one knows what to do with us. And I said, hey, would you guys want to kind of create like a mom's group, dad's group for operators where we meet every month and help each other? There were 5 rules. No promotion or solicitation. Give more than you get. Leave your ego at the door. What's sent here stays here. And that 10 is now 700. That one chapter called San Francisco is now 25. It was 98% word of mouth, an NPS of as high as it gets, 80, I think, 90. And it was just very authentic. And it is now today the preeminent operator syndicate. So what is operator? Company builders, non-technical. CFO, so we have 4 personas: CFO, COO, ops, biz ops and strategy, and early stage founders. What do we have all in common? We just build, right? Late stage, finance is finance and product is product, right? It's very, very specialized. We are like, you think like Navy SEALs. We just have to do it all. And that's what we have in common. And it's extremely rewarding. And we're one of the most engaged and active communities in the world when it comes to a professional network. FOG stands for Operators Guild, FOG Ventures. There grew a need where all these products are being built for us. So these VCs would reach out to me, my friends who knew me as someone that had a community of operators for jobs, etc., and said, wait, will you take a look at this product or this startup? And I said, why? Because it's an operator tool. So this goes back to operators starting to matter now. Not just engineers, not just sales. And they said, if you like any of these, we'll cut a term sheet, which blew my mind. And it told me the power of the community, which is our persona. We're buyers. So FOG Ventures gets into some of the hottest tier 1 deals because we're not about money, even though we invest. We're about customers and talent. So I encourage any operator out there to join. It is super cool, super fun. You get to hear from pitches from the best entrepreneurs in the world and obviously get an allocation to invest.
Perfect. Now, so there are two things you're running. One is FOG Ventures and the other one is OG. Now, let's focus a little bit more on the OG. So I understand that it grew very quickly. You are right now, you have 700 members, around 700 members of operators, and you're running a community. So what are all the activities the community is doing, and why would the next operator join?
So a few things. Number one, I'm going to joke, ChatGPT. We have an incredibly active email form, Q&A form, where you get immediate, real-time, actionable, quality answers. Because you sit on top of 10,000 years of experience, right? That experience is not replicable. We joke, authentic intelligence, not artificial intelligence. So that's number one, is like SVB, the whole bank crisis. When it's uncertain, we're even more powerful, right? Because we are on the front lines of what's going on. So the information sharing, what to do, what not to do, what's happening is incredible. And then there's just standard day-to-day stuff. The second is social events. We host local dinners. Our summit, I encourage everyone to take a look at. It's Napa, June 8th for all operators, where we help support, talk, network, and make friends with other operators. So the good old in-person friendships and relationships that I think sometimes is forgotten in all this. People in the end are social creatures. The third is a bunch of stuff that I'll just call professional development. So we have master classes taught by the best coaches or experts. If it's international expansion, we have experts there. So whatever topic is relevant. Talent, jobs. We become the home for, if you want to find the best operators, come here. So jobs, opportunity, networking. And of course, investing.
That makes a lot of sense in terms of running the community. What do you think the OG will become? And what do you think are what's your vision for OG in the, like, let's say, next 5 years?
I'd love OG to become the global community for the world's best company builders in high growth VC backed
Companies.
it is the one ecosystem for if you want to build from college to C-level, we are there for you. There is no business school for what we do. There's the school of business, and that's what we are. But we cater through the entire lifespan of.
Perfect. Well, wish you good luck with that. Maybe we from Sudolabs should join as well. Now, in terms of the Fog Ventures, what exactly is your investment thesis? What companies are you looking at, and how much are you investing? Maybe.
Yeah, we're interested in seed through B, pre-product, post-product, obviously post-product. We have two types of avenues. Number one is an operator tool. So the test is, does someone in operations, so G&A, finance, operations, biz ops, strategy, CEO, purchase the product? So it could be compliance, it could be finance, it could be workflows. That's one. The other is FogX. FogX is any other company that cares about operators. There's crypto companies, e-commerce. So the short answer is we were agnostic. Now we don't do like biotech or highly technical because it's not our thing. But our specialty is operator tools because we are the buyer. Oh, and then average check size is 200, 400,000. We have about 30 to 50 operators in every deal. And yeah, then we have, my most proud is 100% track record across all 15 companies in terms of CEOs who have given us the highest rating of you should definitely invest with Fog Ventures. So that's what I'm most proud of.
And why did they give you the highest rating? So what exactly are you giving to your portfolio, except for the money?
Value in terms of live demos. So we've done over 1,400 live demos. So, I mean, you're in the sales business, like getting in front of a decision maker for 60 minutes to pitch is very valuable. We can create 80 of those in a heartbeat. So number one is just demos, prospective customers. Number two is feedback. We write back a lot of feedback on the product, on the go-to-market strategy. So that's invaluable. Because most time when you're pitching one-on-one, no one's giving you feedback on your sales pitch, right? And the other is advisory. So after we invest, we become your advisor set. So there's 35 of us. There's a, it's, Sudolabs at Fog.Ventures. All 35 of us, 50 of us, anytime you can write to us. What do you think about pricing? Send this out to all your network, right? So, and by the way, our check is 250,000, not 2 million. So for such a little allocation, we give you 100 demos, most of them turn into customers. Not most, but I'm saying it's a lot of them turn into customers. Brand awareness, now everyone knows about Sudolabs because we just sent it to 700 people. It's a 90% open rate. And then you get advisors, all for one check. 250. That's it.
That sounds like a great value proposition, really. And so, to how many companies you have invested so far?
Around 15.
15. Cool. Amazing. Perfect. So I'll make sure to send some companies your way when I find the right ones, and I also encourage the listeners to consider sending you a pitch deck. Now let's get a little bit more. So what we covered so far was your role as a CFO, how it's changing. Generally, we also talked about your two ventures. Now let's get a little bit into, maybe more deeply, into your life and your experience. So until now, you've been in so many different positions. Which of those job experiences, from the CFO, COO to the investment banker to actually being a founder and to being an investor, do you like the most? And why do you even care about running your own business and running your own investment fund?
Oh, wow. I've never been asked that. I think the way to answer that is when I feel most energized. Less about my title. It's when I'm building stuff, not maintaining. At WeWork, I was building. It was really exciting. When I help with OG, I'm building. So that's the answer. In theory, if you're the founder of something or the air quote CEO of something, you have ultimate control to build. And if it's early stage, you're building, right? You're not maintaining. Yeah. Anytime I get to be creative, think of something that I want to do and do it, translation, build it, and then see it come alive and make an impact in the world is very addicting.
And so I imagine, building always requires a lot of time, a lot of effort. It also comes down to a lot of stress in the meantime. And, you were you were CEO as a part of large organization. And at the same time, you were running the OG and Folk Ventures. Like, how can one do all of that at the same time?
Well, the short answer is I don't do them. There's teams and full-time staff. I'm just the noisy, you know, interested person on the side. Some people hike, some people bike. I do community invest. And so it's like everyone has their side time, but there are people who run it full time, not me. I still love operating. I still love doing my job of a CFO or COO, and they all kind of mix together. But yeah, it's a good stress, right? There's bad stress and good stress, and I hate to say it, knowing many operators, we're addicted to it. We are addicted to the high that we get building, but it's tiring. Love hate, they call it, right? Love hate.
Nice. Very nice. Um, and that's a very interesting take. So, do you do also anything else other than you? So, how do you relax? Is it really that your relax is actually investing and building the community, or do you do stuff on the side?
It's a good question. I don't have much of a life. No, I have 3 children,
Okay.
and so yes, I don't have a lot of free time. But on the weekends and bedtime, it's my 3 adorable children. They're so fun, 7, 5, and 3. So we're reaching that age where you can do all sorts of fun things with them. But yeah, it's pretty packed with community, investing, operating, and family. But yeah, I don't have free time. It's spent time with my children.
Perfect. Perfect. That sounds like a right way to me, at least. I don't have the family yet, but yeah, it's nice to hear that it brings you joy. Now, so maybe the last 2 topics I wanted to cover. I also, so you are meeting a lot of founders, and you are also a founder yourself. You went through the whole journey, operator, founder. What do you think is the ideal founder profile, and who can become a good founder from what you see, also from your investment thesis?
Another good question. Founder to me is a true passion for whatever you're building. I think there's founders who start something to start something, and there's people who start it because they believe in something. I accidentally started OG because I believe so much in wanting an organization that I wanted for me. So when it comes very authentically or pure, I think that's a good start as compared to, I don't want to have a boss. Let me go start something. The other is hustle, hard work. I know a lot of very smart people, but the difference between smart people and successful people is hard work. The other is confidence. Yeah, there's confidence and then there's narcissism. So it ranges, but most all founders have some sort of confidence or delusionment, whatever you want to call it, because you kind of have to be a little crazy. Otherwise, someone else would have done it already, right? Because it's risky. It's not obvious. So some of the smartest people are founders, but they tell me, oh, well, I'm also naive. So they say things like, if I knew how hard this was, I would never have started it. But I was naive, so I did it. And now it's, and lastly, this goes to like Elon Musk. I remember him saying, he's like, oh, I just wanted to start Tesla so people realize that electric cars could be cool. I didn't think it'd be a real car company, right? So there's just this passion where they don't overthink it. And I think that's what makes really, really cool founders and makes long-standing, lasting businesses.
Great. So to summarize, you need to have true passion, you need to work hard, and then also confidence and that you can make something out of your idea, right?
And be a little naive.
Okay, and crazy.
Yes, because afterwards, like, wow, that was really crazy. I don't want to do that again. If you told me, I wouldn't do it, right? So you got to be a little bit blind and just
To,
do it.
to start the journey. Yeah. And that brings me to my last question. So I hope that there is a lot of founders with that profile right now listening. Now, do you think that the current environment is good for starting a new company? That's the first question, because a lot has changed in the past year or so.
Depends on who you ask. If you're investing, it's great to invest because the prices are low. I believe in '08, during the crash, some of the best companies were created. And the reason why is you have talented people that got laid off. So the opportunity cost was much lower to start something. So if you ask me in terms of when innovation starts, I think recessions are when a lot of talented people say, you know what? Times aren't that good. I can't get a job. I've always had a passion for X. Well, while I look for a job, I'm just going to start this. So not a straight answer, but I think during hard times, there's a lot of innovation that can happen. But raising money is hard on hard times. So in terms of starting a company, talent. If you're starting a company, there's almost amazing talent you can hire, right? So it depends on what you say. Is the talent is going to be great, but fundraising is going to be hard.
Yes, and
Harder.
So there are probably a lot of extremely talented people right now on the market. In the while trying to find a job, they can as well work on their own ideas, or they will try to become startup founders. There'll be worse access to money, as we see, but also a lot of other great talent available for you to hire for your company. So it's unclear, right now from this perspective. But as we see from the previous crisis, the great companies were born, but it might be harder for the early stage founders right now. And how long? I mean, obviously, this is an impossible question to answer. But how do you see the current situation evolving from your perspective? From the you've been working in the finance departments of large organizations, and this is sort of your domain. So, what do you believe will happen in the next year, and when will the situation become better? If you even dare answering that question.
Yeah, I mean, I very randomly guess. Well, what I've seen is everything's are cycles. So it definitely will end. My guess is this one's going to take longer. Longer as in it's not this year, but probably next year where we start to move up again. The banking crisis pushed it off by 6 months, 12 months in terms of funding, right? That stalls everything. But I think we get right back at it. I very much believe humans love innovation, love growth. They're capitalistic. And the minute things get going again, people pile on, right? It's the same thing you always see. It's like, oh, this is too expensive. And all of a sudden, people feel good again. Eventually, the job. And here's why, because we're creating value. So long as humans are creating value, business creating value, there will be jobs. The technology is one of them. AI, there's a whole other subject. But there's still plenty of value to be created. Humans are incredibly adaptive. So yeah, I think it's a matter of time. Call it next year. We're scraping the bottom right now. You can see the stock market stabilizing, waiting for the run. It has to stop, right? Interest rates have to stop going up. And once it does, you see a spike. Once you see a spike up, people start making money. Once they start making money, they start forgetting about the bad days. Then they want to make more money. And then they get more confident. And then they feel things are good. And then they start hiring. And then the new hire is just a one. And then that. So I would, long story short, next year, and we get right back at growing. Maybe not as fast because capital is not free, but back to funding, creating, failing, making it.
Perfect. Let's hope that this is going to happen very soon. And I think this is it for the episode today. Thank you very much, Casey. That was very insightful. And hopefully we'll see each other soon.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for today's episode of the Startup Huddle. Thank you very much for listening. And make sure to catch all episodes on the startuphuddle.com and follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter for more insights and updates on the world of startups. Thanks again for tuning in.